everybody. It's Maura Kim. It's so nice to see everybody. I hope that you all had a great break, and I hope that you're all ready to do a great fun science experiment. So today, I'm going to talk to you about salt in water. There's a place called the Dead Sea, and it's right in between Israel and Jordan. And they say that this sea had so much salt in it that when you go into it, you automatically just float. You can't swim in it because you just float. How cool is that? But they also say because the alkalinity is so high, which means because it has so much salt, no fish or any types of plants can live in the Dead Sea. Do you think that that's a lot of fun? I don't, because I like to see little fish swimming when I'm at the ocean. Do you? So what we're going to do is we're going to take water and we're going to add salt to one, and we're going to leave regular water in another, and we are going to see what floats in one and what floats in the other. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to add some salt to one of our waters. I'd say add about 3 tablespoons. I have 2 cups of water in each one of these. Wait a second, I have a question for you guys. Which one of these is taller than the other? Is it this one? Is this one the tall one? Or is it this one? Is this one the tall one? That's right, you guys. You said it right. You said this one was the tallest. Good job. You guys got even so much smarter over the break than you were before the break. Good job. So I'm going to stir the salt in this one. And you should stir it a lot until all the salt dissolves. Do you know what the word dissolves means? Okay, I'll tell you. So the word dissolves means you're going to stir it until you can't see any more salt in it. So dissolve means that there's none left in it. The salt just goes into the water and disappears. It dissolves. So when you add salt to water, that makes the water more dense, which means adding salt means adding weight. And that's why some of the things will float to the top and some of the things will sink. Because if it's lighter than the water, it will float. If it's heavier than the water, it will sink. So like in the Dead Sea, there's so much salt in it that everything floats. Even you would float. I would float. Mommy and Daddy would float. Everything would float in the Dead Sea. So now we're going to follow our chart here, and I have an egg, an animal cracker, a gummy, a goldfish cracker, a piece of chocolate, a Lego, a seashell, and a tomato. And if it floats in the salt water or the fresh water, I'm going to put a check. And if it sinks, I'm going to put an X. So we're going to start out with an egg. I'm going to put the 1 egg in the salt water and 1 egg in the fresh water. Whoa, look how cool that is. The egg is floating in the salt water, but it sank in the fresh water. That means that it's lighter than the salt water, but heavier than the fresh water. So what we're going to do is we're going to write that the egg floated in the salt water but sank in the fresh water. Now we're going to do an animal cracker. I'm going to put it in the salt water first. And now I'm going to put it in the fresh water. Look at that, guys. It floated in the salt water and it floated in the fresh water. So we're going to put a check mark for salt water and a check mark for the fresh water. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my spoon and I'm going to take both of them out so that you guys can see what happens to the rest of the things that I put inside of my glass containers. The next thing I'm going to do is a gummy, and it's just any kind of gummy. And now I'm going to put it in the salt water, and I'm going to take a gummy and put it in the fresh water. Look at that, guys. It sank to the bottom of the salt water, and it sank to the bottom of the fresh water. So on our chart, we're going to put that the gummy sank with an X and sank with an X. Our next one is a goldfish cracker. Who likes to eat the little goldfish crackers? Now remember, in the Dead Sea, they say that no fish can live in the Dead Sea because there's too much salt and the alkalinity is way too high. So let's see what happens in the salt water. The goldfish cracker is floating. Let's see what happens in the fresh water. The goldfish cracker is floating in there as well. So we're going to mark that the goldfish cracker floated in the salt water and floated in the fresh water. Next, we're going to try the piece of chocolate. I'm going to put it, whoops, whoop. That was a little splash. It jumped into the salt water, and I'm going to put it in the fresh water. What happened, guys? Who can tell me? That's right. They sank. It sank in the salt water and in the fresh water, which tells me that the piece of chocolate is heavier than both the salt water and the fresh water. So we're going to mark an X for the chocolate and an X in the fresh water and an X in the salt water because they sank in both. All right, the next one we're going to use a Lego. I've got a blue Lego for the salt water and a white Lego for the fresh water. Whoops, my Lego fell. Putting it in the salt water. Putting it in the fresh water. So the Lego floated in each of them. Can you see that? The Lego floated in the salt water and the fresh water. That means that the Lego is lighter than both the salt water and the fresh water. So we're going to put a check mark and a check mark because it floated in both. And the next we're going to do is our seashell. See our seashells? You all know that Maura Kim has a bunch of seashells from when she goes on vacation. I'm going to put the shell in the salt water and the shell in the fresh water. And it sank both times. Do you think that there are seashells in the Dead Sea? I wonder. So here we're going to put an X for the salt water and an X for the fresh water. And the last thing that Maura Kim has is a tomato, a baby tomato. Put it in the salt water and put it in the fresh water. This is the salt water. Look, friends. It's floating in the salt water. But what happened in the fresh water? That's right. It sank. Which means, whoa, Maura Kim is sweating. It's hot out today. Which means that the tomato is lighter than the salt water, but heavier than the fresh water. So it floated in the salt water, but sank in the fresh water. And that is our experiment today. So remember, when you're doing the experiment, you don't have to have the same things that Maura Kim has. You can go grab any of the things that you have in your house, or maybe some things that Mommy and Daddy have in the refrigerator, and then you can test your stuff out to see if your stuff sinks or floats. Bye, everybody. See you soon. Mwah. I love you, and I miss you guys so much.